Hi everybody, I'm Tom Hafer, the host of the Parish Podcast, and welcome to this edition. The Parish Podcast is available in audio-only form on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever you find podcasts. And welcome to the Parish Podcast. It is a production of the Communications and Media Department of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, talking about events and programs with the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. Today our guest is Jason Barnes. He is the director of the Burton Complex. And Jason, welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to. We got some big stuff going on out at the Burton Complex. Let's talk about, first of all, I guess this is kind of the big thing that people have been speaking of the last few months. We finally, after much trial and tribulation and other issues, we've got the camper and RV spots completed, and they are working, and everything is working great with those. Tell us about that project and what it means.
Well, the camper and RV project was something that we actually had on the books and ready to go before COVID and the hurricane came, Hurricane Laura. We had a situation where that lot had just become into shambles. It was a situation where it was all original stuff, and then underneath the ground, all of the pipes, everything were rotting because they were from, that area was actually the first thing that was built on the entire complex. So it's even earlier than 77. So it was always in the plans to just tear everything down and start from ground up, from below ground. And so when the hurricane took care of it, had to wait a little bit and be patient for all the funding to come in and all the grants and stuff. But once we were ready to go with it, it's just been light speed ahead, and it looks great. I mean, we made some modifications. We don't have as many spaces out there because over time, from the 70s to now, RVs and let's just say motor coaches, everything, they've gotten bigger.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of small spaces. Now we've widened it and accommodated for that. Now to where you can have an RV and a couple of cars that park in the same bay. And we've upgraded our electricity to where you don't have just 30 amps or 50 amps, you have both. And it's full service. It's water, sewer, everything included. So it looks great. It's done well ever since it opened because it's the livestock show and rodeo from February started with it. We had the high school rodeo. We're about to have the Jehovah's Witness come in, and it's finally getting used after 4 years.
We had some other hurricane-related and other type of projects that are also in the process of being wrapped up. Let's talk about what else is happening at the Burton Complex.
It's interesting to think about the two major hurricane projects that we had. We had the regular hurricane repairs, and then we also have another project that is the HVAC replacement, which is all of our air conditioning systems from every sort of area you can think of, not just the air handling units that push the air through. It's all the piping, the cooling towers, chillers, all of that. So those were two projects that were put together in this one packet, really. Every 2 weeks we meet with our project guys, of people that are, the contractor, architect, and so forth. And someone made the comment that we have been at these two projects for about 2 years. Yeah. And it's not waiting 2 years. That was waiting 2 years, but then when we started, it was a big, enormous project. And we just finished the hurricane repairs. We're going to be finished with all of the HVAC systems in about 6 weeks. So we're practically there and done. But it was a very big task. It was a very big task to put it together. Our facilities department had a lot of work to do putting it together with the architect, but all of that work was needed. We had a lot of damage from the hurricane, and all of this work was pretty much to repair, at least in the hurricane repair project.
This is the Parish Podcast, a production of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury's Communications and Media Department. I'm Tom Hafer, the director of the Communications and Media Department. Our guest today is the director of the Burton Complex, Jason Barnes. Jason, you did use the term RV, and that is, it is not quite an acronym, and that's fortunate because we do have a rule against using government jargon and government acronyms here on the Parish Podcast. If you do that, you will be assessed a 5-yard penalty. And so far, you're okay. RV is a common term and not government acronym, so stick with that and you're going to be okay. Let's talk more about the complex. What's the background of this place? How did this place come into being, and how did the parish end up operating this?
So the police jury was contacted back in the 70s from our district livestock show and rodeo folks who had been having their rodeo in McNeese. They were outgrowing that area, and McNeese had other plans for it as well. At the same time, there was a push for more community-type related events. The Civic Center was already here, but they felt there was a need to have more opportunities. And so it was actually W.T. Burton who actually had some land that and donated it to the police jury to build a coliseum. It was very interesting at that time. The coliseum aspect was so unique and almost like visionary for our area, because at that time there were only two coliseums anywhere close to us, and it was the Astrodome and the Superdome.
Yeah.
So having a coliseum here in this small area was something unheard of, and that speaks to the minds and leaders of that time who were that visionary and forward thinking. But nevertheless, they built on 50 acres. They built a coliseum, an event barn, and an outdoor arena. And the rodeo opened it back in 1977. But since that time, we've had thousands of events, all spanning from Western type events to concerts to anything you can think of. And it's been a good benefit for our community. Just thinking about what we just went through with graduations.
Yeah.
I mean, with some of these high schools, you have to have something that large to be able to fit everybody, and we still can't even do that. We have to have tickets for them. So it's a very unique place. I will add one other thing that you might want to throw in somewhere, but when we opened the place in '77. There's actually front page documentation on the American Press that call the Superdome its sister site, and then the Lake Charles Superdome and all that. And it's just like, you think about that now and it's funny, but like I said, that was so interesting back then.
You have certain events that are huge annually. Talk about some of those and how the Burton complex is available to accommodate those big events.
Well, our largest event that we have is our state high school basketball tournament that we've had for about 12 years now, and that brings in about 30 to 35,000 people in 1 week, and that's a pretty monumental task. At least it was at the very beginning. When we first started this, we were for a good 4 years we were just trying to figure out all the ways that all the logistics and all the things that were needed. It's a testament to the staff I work with, the volunteers, and the groups like Visit Lake Charles and others that make it so easy now. We're not immune from something that's new, but we can handle it a lot easier. Then you have our rodeos, our district rodeo, which is big. We have a lot of private events that a lot of people would never know of. I mentioned Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And the Jehovah's Witness congregation that comes in 2 or 3 times a year will fill up the every seat is filled.
Interesting.
And they do that. They have about 5-day events, and they love coming to Burton. This is the first time they're able to come back because of the camper lot, because they use all of that. Yeah. So those are some of our big ones. Our Mardi Gras balls are big. Yeah. So it's really interesting. But then we have events that nobody would know about too much that are great. Like I think next week we have an event coming in that every year where it's an organization that teaches children with Down syndrome to ride a bike.
Awesome.
And they learn how to ride the bike on the floor, and then they go outside on their last day to graduate. And it's great. Those kinds of things are great.
This is the Parish Podcast. It is a production of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury's Communications and Media Department. I'm Tom Hafer. Jason Barnes with the Burton Complex is our guest this week. Do you still have Flea Fest?
We do. We have
Because I get itchy every time I hear that name, and I just thought about it, and I need some calamine lotion and perhaps a Benadryl or two now that I've brought up the topic. But tell us about Flea Fest.
I've never thought about Flea Fest in that way. I mean, it's just because you just get used to it. But yeah, I can see where that would be a thing. Yes, we have it once a year. They're trying to bring it back to 2 times a year. Sometimes the dates aren't just working out, but that is a big thing where a lot of vendors come in from all around the region and sell their own staple of goods for 3 or 4 days.
So it's like flea market stuff.
It's a flea market
gathered into one big event.
Yeah, it's a big flea market. What's great about our event barn is, and a lot of people don't realize this, but an event barn is massive.
It is.
It's 4 acres under one roof. I mean, you don't really have many buildings that are like that, and so you can put a lot of things under that roof. And the folks with the flea market have figured out every inch and square inch to figure out how to put as many people in there as possible.
Over the past few years, let's go back to 2020, the Burton complex became an essential area, essential site for all kinds of different emergency operations and things that we've had to do, from giving away masks and having the first round of COVID testing and things like that we did during the pandemic, to all sorts of things that have occurred during the hurricanes and other disasters in the years following. Talk about how it's evolved into that type of an event center.
Well, I believe the police jury has recognized that this building is multifunctional in so many ways, and it only makes sense to be able to use the complex as an emergency response type area. We tend not to really want to get involved with hurricanes, so we'd really like to not have to deal with that ever again, especially since we just repaired everything. But as far as other things, like when we had the big tank fire here last year, we mobilized the Coliseum, and that was a brief stopping point for some of the elderly that lived there. So we can do a lot of things. Our Homeland Security has really identified ways that it could be very beneficial to the area, and we actually have plans in place to be ready for that. I mean, just for an example, just this week, our staff got every room emergency ready because the summer is more of our slow season. So when you have more of a tropical season, it lends to that. And so all these rooms have tables and chairs ready to just set up, computers and TVs ready to set up just in case.
It is not designed to be a shelter during a hurricane, so that's not typically what we would do, but it is a staging area for a hurricane evacuation in certain occasions. Talk about the operations that go into something like that.
Well, it's unless the term has changed, it's a lily pad operation. They call it. And I think it's great. It's the fact that you collect all of your people locally, get them in one centralized spot, and then when the state sends down buses to take them off to areas north or in the very opposite direction of where the hurricane's going, they pick them up at Burton. And so that worked well with one of the hurricanes before Laura. It was like a good practice round. But once Laura hit, we had everything ready to go, and we had everybody out in time. Myself and my operations man were the last people to turn out the lights at 4:30 the day that it came, but we were able to get out.
And then you ended up hosting in the parking lot and elsewhere a lot of the response activities. Some of the utility companies and things like that were utilizing the location, and the National Guard was there as well, correct?
The National Guard was there later. They needed places to stay for like Delta and other things. They came in, but we had an agreement with Entergy as a main setup site for this area. And when you're in a disaster situation, especially people that are in the middle of working it, you look for at times when you can breathe a little bit. You look at times to sort of reflect and think about anything that was good that happened. And that's one of the great memories I had. I mean, in almost no time all those parking lots were entirely taken up by all this infrastructure and about 5,000 people from all around the country. And in the 6 to 8 weeks they were there, I got to know so many of them from different states. This was in the middle of COVID too,
right.
so you had to do all that. But, it was great because they would, at the same time they were borrowing our equipment for things, they'd say, now, do you have anything wrong with your equipment? Because we can fix it. And they did. There were a lot of things wrong with our stuff. They fixed.
Come to my house.
Yeah, and so it was and they had a little reception at the very end before they all packed up. So, it was a good benefit to the community to have everybody there. We were glad to be able to host them there. But from working on that spot, it was nice to get to know new people. In fact, when the New Orleans storm hit the following year, is Ida?
Ian? Ida?
It's an I storm. The person who ran all of the Entergy operation drove over just to visit us.
Wow.
Because she was over in Slidell, I think. So yeah.
How is the complex funded? Is there a tax that goes along the way to keep the place in operation? Obviously, you get revenue from the events.
That's right. It's funded by property tax, a 1.5 mil property tax. It's our lowest property tax for the police jury. But that tax goes a very long way. These kinds of venues, in general, around the country, even your most successful ones that you can think of, usually don't turn a profit. They're trying to break even, but it's hard to keep a building like that going. And a lot of the times, like I said, you're doing a lot of community events that are needed, but they're not money revenue generators. But we also get our revenue from rentals. A lot of people wouldn't realize it, but our food and beverage actually brings the majority of our revenue source income. So that's the big.
And then there's an economic benefit to the area when we have, say, 30,000 fans come in for the basketball tournament. That sort of pays for it in a different way.
That's right. It pays for it in a different way. We have just for that one event, we have, I think it's about an economic impact of about $3.8 million.
Wow.
And so there are other economic generators that we've hosted before with other events, but it's just interesting. There's a lot of memories that you have. I've been there for 11 years. We have a lot of good times, memories. We have a lot of things that are unique that we hope no one ever will have to go through with COVID. Mm-hmm. COVID was so interesting in the sense that we had to worry about spacing. And how do you do that with events?
Yeah.
We had to saran wrap seats so that we could be 50% occupied, no one broke the rules.
The only thing that saran wrap sticks to is itself.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right. I hate them. But the other part that a lot of people don't remember is that we were a mega election center for the last presidential election. Yeah. And that in itself was really interesting to put together. We put it together like a Disney ride. I mean, you had a line queue, but you had them in different rooms. They didn't need to see how big the line was, so we'd put them in little rooms here and there. Right. And it was great. It all turned out wonderful. We have lots of good stories that we can remember, and we could write a book.
What type of group or organization might be interested or would be beneficial for them to utilize your services? Who are you out there marketing to get people to come to Burton?
We would market to basically there isn't an industry or a group that really couldn't benefit from us. I mean, even if you take the Coliseum out, we have so many outdoor facilities that could lend to an industry or a nonprofit, anybody. I mean, we even have a meeting room that's got a capacity of 250 people or so. So small groups. I mean, we have wedding receptions, other things in there. We do about 311 event days a year, and a lot of people find that surprising because a lot of it is private. A lot of it's just private individuals. You don't see it, but we keep busy, and it's good to stay busy.
It sure is.
Yeah.
If somebody would be interested in renting or using your facilities, how could they get a hold of you? And what's the best way to contact the folks at Burton?
They can call our main number, which is 337-721-4090. They can also go to our website and do a general inquiry, burtoncomplex.com. Right on the front page, there's a book your event tab. You press it and you fill out a form, and then we get in touch with you 24 hours or so.
Anything else we've forgotten to talk about the Burton complex?
So back when one of the first things we did as a police jury, taking back management over the facility 11 years ago, was the American Idol Homecoming event with Josh Ledette. And it was such a large activity that we had directors, departments from different people in police jury that was working the event. And at the very end of it all, we were really happy. Everything turned out very well. Everything went off without a hitch. And we were all sort of celebrating in the chocolate room. And we get a call on the radio from Nathan Areno at the time. And he said, "Hey, where's Lost and Found?" And we said where it was. And he said, "Okay, well, because I have a set of dentures that someone left in the restroom." And lo and behold, they're dentures. And your mind starts to wonder, how did you forget these? What happened here that, it just didn't fit? I don't know. And, we have many other stories that have little objects like that we hold on to. Yeah. Someone accidentally threw them away. Oh. Otherwise, they'd still be with us, and we could say these are the dentures that we're talking about. But lots of stories like that.
Jason Barnes, the director of the Burton Complex, he is our guest. Thanks for being with us here on the Parish Podcast.
Thank you.
This is the Parish Podcast. I'm Tom Hafer, the Communications and Media Director for the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, thanking everyone who listened to this one and inviting you to tune in next time for the Parish Podcast. So long.